Alrighty everybody, welcome back to Culz Book Reviews. Today we are checking out the latest from author John LeMay, and that is Haunted Lincoln County, New Mexico. This is part of the Haunted America series, and hey, if you guys have kept up with the channel, especially shorts, you guys know we got a early kind of preview at the Roswell Galacticon from John himself. And so I knew as soon as I had finished Jaws Unmade, this was the next one on the docket. But I was really excited to check this one out, especially because we are going to be returning to Lincoln here in a couple months from now in September for the Billy the Kid Historical Coalition event that they're putting on. So who knows, maybe we could have got some ideas for some ghost stories and stuff from this book, which we did. But before we get to my thoughts, let's take a more in-depth look at the book. Alright, up top you see the title, Haunted Lincoln County, New Mexico, as well as right behind the font you see the moon. Not full, but getting pretty close. And it's behind the legendary house, aka the old Lincoln County Courthouse, where Billy the Kid made his escape, killing Bob Ollinger and J.W. Bell and riding off into history. And so, really neat. It's a place we've visited multiple times, so always really cool to learn more about the locations you've been to. Below you do see the Haunted America kind of logo that they always pop up with that skull. And then, of course, the author's name, John LeMay. On the side, you see the title again, Haunted Lincoln County, New Mexico. And then LeMay, again with that skull logo. On the back, you see a massacre, a hellhound, and Billy Kid's many victims, and a little bit about the book. And then, of course, that famed depiction of Billy the Kid there. And again, we see Haunted America and the ISBN if you need it. Towards the back, we see about the author, and there's a little bit about John himself. The book comes in at 128 pages. And I'm sure if you guys have read the Haunted series, or really any of those books that we call the Safeway books, because, I don't know, just here in Colorado, we're pretty lucky. Any of the Safeways we go to, they have like a local town history section. It always makes me really excited. I always end up buying one in some city. But I'm sure you guys kind of know the basic layout where, yeah, there is writing, but there's also going to be lots of pictures, usually depicting whatever is being talked about at the time. Right there you can see a picture of White Oaks. And here's some pictures from Lincoln, this of the Wortley Hotel. Got to also throw in the Ellis House there. And we're going to get some cemetery pictures, of course, as well as some more information on the courthouse itself and anything really to do with the Lincoln County War and, of course, Billy the Kid. But let's get to my thoughts. So yeah, luckily when we were in Roswell for the UFO festival and attending Galacticon, it was on the final day. I think it's when we did the T-duels. John mentioned that he had this new book coming out, and I was pretty excited because obviously we started out as a paranormal group, and we still do that kind of stuff, but we're also big into history. And so these type of books like meld the two. And of course anything from John is usually a good read. I should say always a good read. I haven't had a bad experience or anything like that. So of course I had to pick it up. Going into what the book is about, it's definitely about a lot of history. It kind of falls obviously into the mold of the Haunted America series, but I would also say comparing it to two books that we've previously reviewed, Ghosts of Lincoln and Ghosts of Chicago, both by Adam Seltzer. It's kind of similar to those in the fact that there's a lot of history with some of the spooks and ghostly stories and apparitions mixed in, but you're learning a lot as you're reading it. So I think those are a pretty apt comparison for this one, for anyone that's kept up with the channel, and hopefully people have read those two books because they're fantastic. How does this compare to other John LeMay books? Well, I would say it feels different. It feels more in line, I would say, with the Haunted America series than the ones we've previously reviewed on the channel. But it's not a bad thing. Like, John's a pretty talented writer, and we've seen him be able to jump from different genres or even just types of books, going from nonfiction to fiction with his 21 Guns series. And so I think he's able to just fit whatever type of book he's trying to write, and I think that's what makes him just a super talented writer. And so, yeah, I think it does feel a tad different from his other ones, but not in a bad way. It just feels a little bit more in line with the series that it's trying to be in. So nothing wrong with that. You still hear John's voice coming through Just maybe not as much as, like, say, Jaws Unmade or Kong Unmade, where, while super research, super informative, it does feel a little informal in a good way at times, which is reasons I really like it, just because you can hear his voice and it's coming across as just a person having a good conversation and telling you some fun history. This one definitely feels a little bit more formal, so nothing wrong with that. There's lots of great stories in here. Because it's like super brand new, I don't want to, like, I guess, ruin anything. I will say, if you're a fan of Lincoln County War, anything involving that, and Billy the Kid, he's obviously going to show up, because this is where it all took place, right? The Lincoln County War took place in Lincoln County, New Mexico. It's in the name. But yeah, you see a lot of stories about Billy. Dolan shows up quite a bit. Ollinger's another one. Even in chapters not about the Lincoln County War, anything in Lincoln, New Mexico, he shows up with a ghostly bull that you might run across that also maybe is bad luck. Don't want to ruin it too much, but it's in there. It's like a fun one. So I would say, if you guys, because I know we have a big following on here that love that type of history, I think you'll still get a good kick out of this one. I would say, even if you're not a big believer in the spirit world or ghost hunting or ghosts or anything like that, don't be deterred. I think you'll get enough out of the history that you'll enjoy it. It also comes up with, like, Pat Garrett. Obviously, I should have mentioned in the last kind of tidbit, but it also goes into, like, Capitan, which is a city we really love. We love going to and visiting. It's where Smokey Bear is buried, who comes up in the story. And I think some other kind of fun stuff is just some of those mythologies and legends that are nicely weaved in and tied in here. If you guys have kept up with any of John's, like, Cowboys and Saurians, or even early 20th century UFOs, like that series, I think you'll see some of those, like, fun mythologies and urban legends and stories weaved in here as well. Because there's a whole story of, like, a cave that never ends, or could the Aztec have come up to Capitan Mountains and buried treasure and built kind of like a fortress for their treasure? Super cool information in here, and I know it's something that John has spoken about when he's come on the channel, but it's always fun re-diving into that history. Hey there, it's Keegan from the editing chair rather than the review. But as I was editing this, I saw that I forgot to mention friend of the channel, Josh Slatton, who is obviously from the Billy the Kid Historical Coalition, does have a story in here that I thought was pretty interesting. And I definitely think you guys will enjoy, because obviously a lot of you are fans of the Coalition and follow them, and they do good work. And I couldn't make this video without saying that. So apologies, Josh. But it's in there now. Back to the review. I would say, if I had to pick one chapter that really stands out, it's chapter 4, the Bonito City Murders. And that's because I really didn't know a lot about that history. And I think anytime that I can learn something and honestly get the idea to want to film some stuff, because I haven't heard a lot about it, so I want to share that information, I think it's a good thing. And so that chapter really stood out. And that's about the murders of the Mayburys, a family there at the Maybury Hotel, by a gentleman by the name of Martin Nelson. And of course, there's all, like, kind of theories about why he may have done it, some maybe leading contributors, or just things that might have triggered the killings, but also just, like, the history, as far as, like, there's this whole city that's now gone, and where it used to stand is under a lake, the Bonito Lake, which John does go into and talk about. When the lake was drained, nothing was there still from the town. So the stories about, yeah, they took everything apart and moved it, were true. But at least the land and where everything happened is now under this lake, which for me is interesting, because where my great-grandmother grew up in Nebraska, which is, I guess, spoiler, an upcoming episode at some point in the future, is actually underwater itself. And so this is a pretty common occurrence where, yeah, some of our old towns and where you might be trying to go do some historical research are completely gone. They're under these man-made lakes, which is fascinating. He also goes in and tries to debunk some myths as far as, well, Nelson's not buried under a lake, because that's not even where the original cemetery was. So if he is still buried where the cemetery used to be, not underwater. The bigger reason why they moved it was just regulations about can't have bodies and cemeteries near bodies of water where people are going to drink from. The lake is used for drinking water, and so you don't want water coming down through the bodies and going into the drinking water. Just not good. But yeah, it goes into some of the ghostly stories from the time when the city was still there, because the hotel itself was, according to a lot of people, I guess, left abandoned and kind of untouched to the point you could still see the bloody footsteps, which is a haunting depiction. But people would talk about ghosts there, and of course there's ghost stories now. So who knows, maybe that's a future investigation episode. Definitely want to get more into that type of topics. I know we've been out of it a while, and I do apologize. Just a lot going on, super busy. So we're getting there to have more time. But as you can tell, there is lots of good stuff in here. I know it's only 128 pages, but if you don't walk away learning something, either you're a really good historian, or I don't know. I think there's something in here for everyone, especially fans of this channel who both love history and maybe some of the paranormal. And again, if you guys don't like the paranormal, I think you'll still find something really intriguing by this one. So yeah, there's my review. I think, kind of looking back at like Ghosts of Lincoln by Adam Seltzer, it's very comparable to that book. So I would say an 8 out of 10 with this one. Very good read, and one I do recommend. So make sure you go pick it up. It is brand new. And hey, even if you're just taking a day trip through Lincoln, or you're going to be staying somewhere in the Lincoln County and want to know some of the fun history, or I guess some of the least fun history, because there's some bad stuff that happened that caused the ghost, as well as the spooky history, pick this up. You won't be disappointed. But until next time, guys, for more Culz Book Reviews, click the link to your left. For more about us here at Culz Paranormal, click the link to your right. And don't forget to hit the like, give us a subscribe, and let us know. Have you read any of John's books? And what's your favorite ghost story from Lincoln County? Tell us in the comments below.